Okay, so again, we'll ask for a statement of candidacy, and just keep your eye on Ron there, who will give you a placard as to how much time you have left. So, Amy, please go ahead.
My name's Amy Donahue, and I'm running for 115. I have 4 children, 3 of which have gone through 115, one that is about to enter. I'm a big fan of the different learners that go through all school systems, because my children are such different learners. I have a mix of a kid who did a lot of AP, on grade level kid, a kid with a 504 who's smart as a tack but needs some guidance, and then I have a disabled daughter who has an IEP. And the high school's done an amazing job for my children who have gone through. Always room for improvement. My past experience, I was in telecom for 20 plus years, an ever-changing industry. Certainly learned how to handle a lot of different scenarios there, a lot of different people. I've been very involved in Lake Bluff since I moved my family here 10 years ago. I sit on a committee for the Park District, and I've been on the 4th of July Parade Committee since 2016. I sat on the board for the Learning Differences Association for about 3 years. I've been involved with True North, and the Community Wellness Task Force is one of my probably the most near and dear to me of the things that I've been involved with. I served on 65 for the last 4 years. It's definitely my most, I would say, the proudest work I've done in the community. And I've enjoyed getting to know how a board runs at that level, and I feel like I'm ready for the Lake Forest High School one now.
Gail, please go ahead.
All right, I'm in trouble with the time. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm very excited to be running for the Lake Forest High School School Board. I'm a born and raised Lake Bluffer. My first job was in 6th grade for the Park District. I had to sit on a storage box at Artesian tennis courts and charge people $1 to play on the courts. I then had to bike the envelope to some house on Garfield Avenue and stick it in a mailbox. And in my first job performance review, I found out in typical Lake Bluff fashion, 6th grader, I was putting it in the wrong mailbox. But we figured that out, as Lake Bluff always does. I'm a 1987 graduate of Lake Forest High School. For those of you that are counting, that's the year after the Bears won the Super Bowl. I'm a product of some great teachers in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest schools, those who have helped me cut my teeth. One sitting in the back row, Miss Kathy O'Hara. My first big term paper on the Lusitania, she gave me a C. I recycled that paper, added a little bit of depth to it after feedback, and I got a B on it at the high school. And that was all before ChatGPT. So I'm here before you this evening because I'm in my pending retirement. I retire from 33 years in public education in July. For the past 31 years, I've been at New Trier High School. I've been a teacher, a counselor, a dean, a coach, and for the past 8 years, I've been an administrator, and I'm now serving as the associate principal. Along with working in the schools, I really got to know young adults in my 20s as a mountain and river guide in the American West, and during those summers away from New Trier, and as some of you know, you don't get to know adolescents any more than spending 24/7 with them. I became a better educator when I became a parent and soon understand the whys behind the emotions of the hundreds of parents that have sat across from me in my office or on the phone. And as a dean for over a decade, I pretty much saw everything a North Shore teenager could or couldn't do, and I always operated by trying to put myself in their shoes and trying to understand why they make the decisions they do. Okay.
Any questions for our District 115 candidates? Please give specific examples of how you have been a leader and creator of public trust in our community.
Well, first I want to say that I'm glad that I went before Gail did on that last speech, because that was quite a resume of greatness. I As a leader, I would say sitting on a school board and doing some amazing things on the school board with the other people that sat next to me, getting things done and prioritized, being able to focus on the students and what's important. And as I said before, was by far the thing that I was the proudest of and definitely the most rewarding in the community.
Thank you. I've had 3 kids go through Lake Forest High School, and I have not been able to volunteer as much as I'd like in this community. I was board appointed by Lise Elliott when she served on the Lake Forest High School board for a 2-year position on the education committee. This is now my 9th year. They've never told me to leave, so hopefully I'm doing a good job on that. I'm now on the superintendent's advisory board. I was put forward for this board by Matt Montgomery, the superintendent, so I've worked very closely with the administration, past and present, at Lake Forest High School. I think I'll leave it at that.
Gail, we'll let you have the first crack at this next question, which is, what do you feel are the 3 biggest issues of concern at Lake Forest High School?
I think I've looked at the current board priorities. I think we're always in competition on the North Shore with other high schools working at New Trier. I know we compete with our partner schools, and Lake Forest is number 3rd in the test scores, competing with New Trier and Stevenson right now, which is really phenomenal. We have a lot of great stats with that. I think we always want to look at maintaining that, but I also worry about the balance for our current high school students. As we know, with the changing landscape of college admissions and all the pressure, they can no longer just be on the soccer team. They have to be on the captain of the soccer team. They have to really be able to articulate who they are because of that nature. So I think the balance for kids at the high school is important. I think we also don't reach all of our schools. My kids had wonderful experiences at the high school, but I realize not everyone feels that way. So how do we make all school kids feel like they belong? And we know that kids learn best when they have a relationship with their teachers. I think I've run out of time.
I too looked at the outline of what is called a priority on the website for the board. So it's pretty cut and dry, the academics, the culture, and implementing the portrait of a learner. And Gail really said it all. I understand the academics piece of it. That's always going to be the number one thing. I agree that the well-rounded student is also something that I think should be a priority. I love that there is a push for the climate, because after the pandemic, there are a lot of kids struggling academically and emotionally. So I think that's a huge priority, because if the kids aren't happy, they're not going to do well as students. I also think implementing all of the work that went into the Portrait of a Learner is critical, because so much time was spent on that.
Thank you. Next question, and this will go back to Amy to reply first. What do you feel is the biggest academic challenge in the coming years?
I think the change in how admissions for college has gone. I think post-COVID, it's a different world. So I think the challenge will be to understand what we should be getting the students ready for and how to get them ready. And even like the small things like the testing for the college entry, what's important, what's not important, and really being able to pull together what colleges are looking for now versus maybe what they were a handful of years ago.
Could you repeat the question again? Sorry.
What do you feel is the biggest academic challenge in the coming years?
So some of you may or may not know that the state switched to ACT as the state test. This was a financial decision, and the longitudinal data and what this has done to public schools has really kind of offset everything that we've worked for. recently in preparing our kids with the SAT. They're two very different tests. So this is something that Lake Forest High School is going to have to work on, as far as, not that you want to totally just teach to a test, but in our performance, we need to look at all areas that the ACT tests versus that. And I feel there's just an overwhelming testing of standardized tests for our kids across the country, and I think that's just something we need to work on, to not over-test just because we're worried about the high school's test scores.
Do you feel that security at our high school is adequate in today's volatile world?
This is hard to answer in a minute. We are, the amount of time I have shifted the hours that I spend in my different duties as a high school administrator to safety has been substantial in the last few years. You know, we hear all the worst stories and we see the school shooting, and I know that I've watched the high school be very responsive in anything and any threats, the amount of threat assessments that we go through. All the area high schools are working on this. So I think they're working towards it. I don't think they're there right now, but this is an area I'd like to dig into as well on the board. Thank you.
I think Gail said it all. I feel like my children are safe in that school. And I know that not everybody agrees with me. I know there have been some comments about communication and how quickly it goes out, and the procedures and what's in place today. I haven't experienced that, and I'm sure there's always room for improvement when it comes to safety in our world today. So that's something that I need to spend some more time sitting on that board to really understand.
Do you think the high school does a good job with non-college options and the trades?
I think that they are getting there. I think that they want to do a good job with that, but there's a lot of work to be done. It's tough to run a high school in communities that have goals for their children and where kids are feeling pressure to go to four-year colleges, even if that might not be a good fit for them. I do think with more technical options and relationships with CLC that have been put in place, that it's going in the right direction. I think there is a ton of work to be done inside the high school and then with the perception outside in the community.
I want to build on Amy's. I think we need to normalize a gap year, and I think we need to normalize different tracks that North Shore students have followed for so long. College is not for everyone, and the typical school day is also not for anyone. Lake Forest is a lighthouse school on the North Shore as far as sending kids to CLC for partial days, and I think that's great. I think, you know, the state is going to career pathways too, which is another way to look. But college is too expensive right now for it just to be the next step assumed for many of our students. There's too many other great options for them, and some of them just need the maturity to know and work for a little bit before they make that commitment to school. And we need to make that feel okay. I'm not a huge fan of commit day, May 1st, for those kids that don't have a college that they're going to or are excited about, for everyone to be wearing their sweatshirts at Lake Forest High School. It's exciting for the kids that know. Do we celebrate them? But what about the kid that doesn't know or isn't going to a college? What does it say for them? So I think we need to look at different things like that we do that assume everyone is on that same track through their after their post-high school plans.
Any other questions? One final question from Vote Lake Bluff, or maybe my own edification. I think it's been mentioned a couple times in the last few minutes, the portrait of a learner. I know it features prominently on the Lake Forest High School website. Could each of you or one of you just kind of explain for our committee and for the people gathered tonight, expound a little bit on what that concept means?
A portrait of a graduate, Lake Forest calls it portrait of a learner, is a very common piece right now for schools to put into their strategic plans to really focus on the areas that they want individuals to develop beyond just the academic classroom. So I would recommend all of you take a look. They've spent a lot of time on that. They brought in a lot of student voice. A lot of times we working at schools decide things for kids, and they're like, wait, that doesn't work for us. So it was nice that I know the high school brought in the student voice too in developing those goals. I think there's 7 different. They made it shaped to look like the senior star, which is also just very emblematic of Lake Forest High School, which I thought was cool.
I think you summarized it well. It was an open invitation to the community and students, and even some 7th and 8th grade students, which was interesting, and parents and non-parents of the school. And I think there were about 150 people that came together, and we had like 5 meetings where the priorities were identified. So it was a cool experience, and it is pointed to constantly what we came up with, we need to implement. So again, it'll be interesting to see how it is implemented if we can measure it. I think is the most important thing.
So can there are no more questions. Can I get a show of hands, all those in favor of supporting these candidates for the high school board? Please raise your hand. Okay, so noted. I hope I speak for everyone in this room when I say that I think the Village of Lake Bluff, as it relates to the high school board, will be in very good hands for the next 4 years. So thank you both.